Hey guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It's 9 o'clock, which means it's time for a review show special. That's when I take a deep dive in particular product or company or creator, and I kind of really have a look at everything they do. We kind of take a deep dive in that particular product. A lot of the time, a review show special will be on one of the hottest new products or something that I'd like to take a little bit more time discussing than something that might appear on the review show with Ryland, for example. And today, I'm going to be talking about Streets Pro by Marc Kerstein, which is a new app by Mark, which has set the magic world on fire. Now, I suppose the first question is, why has Streets Pro set the magic world on fire? And it has. I mean, there's been pages and pages of discussions about this on all the different discussion forums and on places like the Magic Cafe and various different Facebook groups. And why is this? Well, there's a few different reasons. First of all, app-based magic is very popular right now, and for good reason. You know, you have an app on your phone, you're good to go anytime, anywhere. Well, these days, people talk about everyday carry all the time. Oh, what's your everyday carry? What do you carry around with you? Well, if you have your phone on you, and let's be honest, most people do, you can, if you've got an app on your phone, you're good to go anytime, anywhere. And I have been an advocate of app-based magic right from way back when these things were first coming out. I was the guy on the Wizard Product Review that was raving about app-based magic. I love the fact that I can have my phone with me and I can have like a 20-minute act on my phone. And, recently I've done 5x5s, looking at various different apps. I've done magic stuff, so I've taken a deep dive into Digital Force Bag. So apps are really popular at the moment. Now, the other reason why Streets Pro has been talked about a lot is because Marc Kerstein's name is attached to Streets Pro. Now, some of the best apps in the world have been created by Marc Kerstein. You know, I think that the app that everybody was using throughout the whole of lockdown virtually was Wikitest. In fact, a lot of the modern day apps take Wikitest as their benchmark. Well, Wikitest was created by Mark, as was Earworm, as was a whole bunch of other apps. And even if he hasn't directly marketed the app himself, he's created it. You know, look at Angelo Carbone's app that was one of the first really good apps. I think it was SMS Caller or something. That was by Marc Kerstein. Look at Digital Force Bag. Mark had a hand in creating Digital Force Bag. The point I'm trying to make is when Mark's name is attached to a product, you know that you are going to get a certain level of quality. It's like when Richard Sanders brings out a trick for close-up magic. There are certain creators that when their name is attached to a product, you know it's instinctively going to be good and you're not going to have to second guess yourself. And that's where we are with Streets Pro. Now, I sat down with Mark. The format of these review show specials is very simple. First of all, I have a quick chat with you about it in the studio, which is what we're doing right now. And then we're going to throw it over to a mini interview that I did with Mark. And in that mini interview, we talked about Streets Pro. We talked about everything Streets Pro does. And we had a good conversation about Streets Pro and why Mark created it and what it does and what it doesn't do. And then we're going to bring it back into the studio for a full review. And I'm going to do a performance to Sarah behind the camera, who has not seen this before. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this to the interview, and I'm going to chat with Mark about Streets Pro, what it does, and why you guys should have this on your phone. So I'm here with Marc Kerstein. How are you doing, Mark? Thank you so much for coming on the channel.
I'm doing great. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. I really, really appreciate it. And we're here talking about, and like, everybody is talking about Streets. Like, everybody is talking about it. You know that a product is popular when the thread on the Magic Cafe just stays there at the top for as long as it has. Like, everybody's talking about it, which is amazing. And I'm going to obviously review this in a bit, and we're going to perform it and everything. But I wanted to talk to you about Streets, what it is, what it does, the history behind it, what made you come up with it, like absolutely everything, if that's okay.
Sure. Yeah.
And we spoke briefly off camera, and you told me that you've been working on this for years, and it originally started with you buying the rights off John Archer. Is that right?
Pretty much. Yeah. It's been one of these things that I kind of have kept coming back to. and it just kind of felt, especially with virtual shows and stuff, I just thought, makes more sense to put it out sooner rather than later. So I've put the work in. I've kind of got, it's been out in a few different iterations from other people, and now I think I finally cracked it, and I'm really proud of it. Yeah.
Fantastic. Now I remember the original John Archer Streets. It was a like an old-fashioned A to Z, and it was kind of like a book test, wasn't it? But it was based around maps. What is that? What have we got here in this app? So what exactly, synopsisize for me, Mark, what exactly does this do?
So it's essentially the same as John Archer's original Streets. It's a book test with a map. So the spectator goes to Google Maps on their phone. They zoom in and think of the name of a street, maybe a street that they grew up on, or somewhere they've got a particular memory or whatever it might be. And then you're able to tell them the street name, but the app kind of goes a little bit beyond that, and you can tell them stuff like about things in the local area. You can tell them what the area looks like, and a whole bunch of other information about what they're thinking. So there's a whole bunch of features. There's actually a couple more tricks and things that it does as well. But at its core, it's still the very same book test with a map, but a digital version.
That's fantastic. And this all happens on the spectator's phone, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so you can do it remotely as well.
Perfect. So it's something that we could do over Zoom, or it's something, or in this wonderful world of social distancing where people are a little bit nervous with you getting too close to them. You can do it with them kind of further away without you even needing to touch their phone.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, even in person, if you don't want to go near them and stuff, you can do it across the room. Absolutely.
Right. And you were telling me that you developed a quite unique input method in Wikitest, without giving anything away, and you've used that same concept in Streets. Is that right?
Yeah. So there's a bunch of stuff that I try and draw inspiration from my own work over the years. So there are lots of elements of Wikitest in here. There's a couple of bits that of things that I really like about Wikitest. The way that you can get particular information and the way that certain things work. You can do this as well. But that's true for a bunch of my apps. So I've taken a bunch of things and tried to put them together and make this into the kind of product of all the things that I've got and really like, and put them all into this one app. So yeah, it's got a whole bunch of stuff.
Perfect. And just for people that are considering whether to buy this or not, you've described the core effect, but you say there's other things that you can do with it as well. Could you elaborate on some of the other things that you can do with the app as well? Would that be okay?
Yeah. So it does a kind of an open prediction. So you tell the spectator you're going to drop a pin on the map, and you show them the pin. So you can very clearly see that there's a marked location, let's say in London, but the map is zoomed out, and you have them name a place in London if that's your chosen place. And let's say they say Big Ben, for example. And then sure enough, they're staring at their phone the whole time. And as they zoom in, they can see that the pin was on Big Ben the whole time. So it's this kind of really novel open prediction kind of effect. But that's, you can, if you wanted to just do that, you could just do that. I've included it more as a means to start the main effect. So there's kind of a good justification as to, I'm going to send you a link to a pin. Don't zoom in just yet, but you can see that that's a pin on the map, correct? And they'll say yes, and then you can go from there. So there's a lot of stuff that's at play with that. You can completely skip that part if you want, but there's these kind of other things around it that you can add to the routine and make a big thing out of it if you want to do a fuller routine, or strip down into a very kind of core essence of what the original effect was intended as well.
So you could literally use this app to put a whole kind of act together with a couple of different things going on over the course of a sort of 10-minute, maybe even 15-minute sort of act, right?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it does a bunch of stuff, and then you've got, a whole bunch of information to reveal. You've got, there's the live, if you're familiar with Wikitest's live peek, you've got a live peek on this. So you've got some information that you can come back to later on. You've got maybe the street name they grew up on, or some kind of memory. If you're doing a wedding, maybe it's like where the couple first met, for example, buildings and points of interest in the area. So you could go, really turn it into something big. And then on top of that, and that's just the main effects. On top of that, you can do this kind of whole prediction thing where you're doing like a mind reading 2 ways round. So I'm going to try and send a thought into your mind now. Okay, let's try this the other way round. So for sure, you could really, you get a lot out of it, I think. So, and again, if you just wanted to do a really stripped down version and do like, make it last a minute, you can do that. And if you wanted to make it last 10 minutes, you can certainly do that.
Brilliant. One thing that I like about your apps is they all talk to each other. Like they all interact, so to speak. Is that the same that we have here? Which of your other core apps link in with Streets, and how do they do how do they link in?
So yeah, this works really well with Earworm, and it's really easy. If you've got Earworm and Streets Pro, you can link them together, and you can do that really easily in the settings. And the benefits of doing so means that if you're familiar with Earworm's input methods, you can use those in Streets Pro in a really natural manner. So rather than use the input methods in Street Pro, if you're familiar with those and you want to use those, by all means, you can go ahead and do that. And the benefits also go a little bit further, where if you're used to performing Earworm, you can perform this the exact same way. It would just show up as when you're performing Earworm the usual way. It would just show up as another option, and you can go into it from there. So I kind of realized there was some natural pairings and natural ways of having these things linked together, and so I figured I would integrate them in a nice way. Yeah, so this and Earworm, if you've got both, you can do it. But if you don't have Earworm equally, you can perform this to its full extent as well. But if you've got both, then I think that's, you get a bunch more features out of it too.
Perfect. And is this available? I know I'm going to get this question, so I'm going to ask it. Is this available on Android as well, or is it just an iPhone app?
Unfortunately, yeah, as with all my stuff, it's just an iPhone app. Yeah, maybe one day that would change, but certainly not for the foreseeable future. It's iPhone only for now.
No, that's I've got an iPhone, so I don't care. That's perfect for me. It's nice to hear that you're using Google Maps as well, just purely because I don't know anyone that uses Apple Maps. Like nobody. It'd be kind of a weird thing to use Apple Maps, but Google Maps is something that everybody knows and uses every day on their phone.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I've actually got two versions of Streets. This is my newest version, which is Streets by itself as its own app, which is Streets Pro, which is kind of the extended version, is Google Maps. So it uses Spectator's phone and they're on Google Maps. I've got a kind of free version, which uses Apple Maps, although it doesn't really say it's Apple Maps. And you can kind of disguise it to look like something else if you really wanted to as well. So you can make it look like you're opening the Google Maps icon. And that's on your own phone. And there's some perks and reasons for it to be done like that. But I totally agree with you. I think Google Maps is what most people use. I've heard some people say that they'd rather it work with Apple Maps, but I think I'm not going to be able to please everyone all the time in that regard. So yeah, it's Google Maps, and I don't think I'll be changing that anytime soon. And it looks and feels and works exactly as it should. And Google Maps actually also gives it some benefit as to the cleanup of the trick at the end. There are some nice things that I think I've managed to exploit to make it work quite well with Google Maps.
And if you're having to send the spectator a pin, just so we know that any limitations with this, do you have to be in a situation where you have signal and your spectator has signal? Because I've been occasionally performing in the middle of a wedding venue that's literally in the middle of the Welsh countryside where they don't even know what signal is. I mean, few and far between, but it does happen occasionally. Is it a case that we are going to need internet in order to use it, or some sort of signal?
Yeah. So you'll need signal, but hopefully justifiably so, because you need the spectators to go to Google Maps. So if you haven't got signal yourself, it's likely that they haven't got signal either, and so you won't be able to have them go to Google Maps and do the trick. And it wouldn't make sense to do so anyway. If you haven't got signal and somehow you're on Google Maps, then equally that's probably questionable. The version of Streets which I've got within Amalgam, which is not as complicated as this. There are ways that you can use that without internet access, but again, it doesn't hugely make sense. It's a thing where you'd probably want to have signal, and you'd probably want to do this version, have the spectator go to Google Maps. So yeah, do something else in those instances, I would say.
Perfect. And while I've got you here, you've mentioned Amalgam a few times. Could we just briefly talk about that? Because this is something that I'm not aware of, which is strange because I'm aware of a lot of your work. And it's like multiple apps in one app. Is that right?
Yeah. So the concept of it was like to kind of be like a magic box that you might get as a kid, but like a digital version of that. So, but with great tricks. So one of my ideas for it was just to make sure that every trick in it was like as good as it possibly can be. Even though there's normally when you have a some kind of app that has multiple things in, the individual things suffer. Whereas I wanted this to all be like really, really strong, powerful tricks that you just kind of get in one big package. And the other part of it was that it's just kind of stuff that I've worked on over the years, and I've just kind of been in the app drawer kind of thing that I just kind of haven't done anything with and haven't released. So there are some things that I might not have released by themselves, but when I put a bunch of them together, you then get like a lot of value. And some of them are oddly specific. So there's a trick in there that's like a word search trick, where you do a memory demonstration with like what looks like to be a game of a word search game that you might have on your phone. And you might not want to do a memory demonstration all the time, and maybe that doesn't fit your style, but maybe there'll be an instance where it does, and so doing that might make perfect sense. So it's like an amalgamation of a bunch of tricks that I've kind of just had lying around over the years that I finally spent quite a long time on polishing up and making as good as I can be, and put them all together in this kind of magic box. But since then, like the version of Streets which I put in there first, I've kind of split out. You can still buy the Streets version from Amalgam, but if you buy Streets Pro, which is now like the kind of souped up version of that, which you can now do with Spectator's phone, which is a trick in its own right, and quite different. And similarly, there are a few things which you can now get outside of it, but it's a good deal, Amalgam. It's got a bunch of stuff in there that you might just and most of them don't require signal. So if you are at your gig in wherever in Wales and you've got no signal, 90% of the stuff in Amalgam doesn't need signal. So you might get, if you're there to do some app stuff, or you want to do some app stuff, it might get you out of a good situation.
That's fantastic. That's amazing. While I've got you here, I'm briefly going to talk about a couple of your other apps, if that's okay. Just in case somebody's watching this and they haven't seen any of your apps yet, or they're new to apps. Obviously, the one that you're most well known for is Wikitest, which is, I can't imagine that there's a single magician in the world at this point that hasn't got Wikitest, but it basically it allows you to do an incredibly clean prediction of a word that people are merely thinking of, without even needing to use your phone. You're using the spectator's phone in a very natural way. I mean, that must be still your most popular app. Is that the benchmark sort of thing?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's odd how I think there's still people. Yeah, every once in a while people still get it. Yeah, for sure. It's very popular, and So I can't help but try and compare things to it, and keep putting things out and thinking about that as a benchmark for sure. But yeah, so it's a popular product.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's amazing. It really is. If people haven't got it,
thank you.
Get it. And you've mentioned Earworm a few times. Could you tell us about Earworm?
Mm-hmm. So Earworm is a song prediction on a borrowed phone. There's a bunch of ways you can do it. The core effect is that I might take your phone and say, I'll tell you to open up the YouTube app and think of any song. I'm going to search for it on your phone and play the song, but I'll keep the volume down. We'll leave the phone here. And then I'd say, I'm thinking of the song. You're going to try and pick up on what it is. So maybe you stare at me. I go, okay, I'm going to try and send you the song bit by bit. And then I say, are you getting it? What song do you think what songs just come to your head? And you'd say, I don't know, Billie Jean. And I go, sure enough, if you turn up the volume, and you hear Billie Jean coming from your phone. You're on the YouTube app playing Billie Jean. There's a couple of ways of presenting it. That's the core effect. I've since did an update so that you can do that remotely. Traditionally with Earworm, you have to take the phone and put the song on, which makes sense in the routine. But now you can send someone a link to a YouTube video. So I'm going to send you a link to a YouTube video. You can see it's there, but just don't hit play just yet. So it'll be on your phone, perhaps. Don't press play, name any song, and they name a song and they press play. So it's a slightly modified version of the routine, but it does mean that you can also do it remotely or in a social distanced in-person situation too.
That's perfect. And what's Diverter?
Diverter is an app where it looks, at its very core, it looks like you're calling one number, but actually you're calling another. So if I wanted to, I might have an accomplice set up, and I'm going to call someone, and maybe we have people think of a random phone number, type in a random phone number, and I might do a trick where I say, okay, I've learned the phone book, and this number that you've dialed is a woman in her 30s. Ask her about a cat or something like this, and you hit call, and sure enough, you're correct. And so you can have someone call any number, and you know exactly who's on the other end of that number. So you just have an accomplice, and it's got a bunch of features. You can have someone name a playing card or a person or a place, and that information goes across to the person that you're calling, and a whole bunch of stuff. So it's like a fake phone dialer thing.
That's fantastic. That's
Thanks.
amazing.
Yeah.
I can see so many applications for that. That's really good. And I want to talk about just another couple of the apps that we've got very quickly while I've got you. Is it Zeno?
Hmm.
What is Zeno?
Well, Zeno. So Zeno was kind of born out of my response to a lot of apps where which I didn't really like, which is if I was trying to get your star sign, that typically in an app form that would entail you. I would say to you, here, type your date of birth into my phone, and then we might go down some procedure, and then not long after, I would say, oh, you're a Taurus, and I never really liked that kind of directness. To me, it just kind of felt like type in your date of birth, you're an Aries. Um, and so it was kind of my response to that, and it was kind of it's an app where the spectator doesn't type anything in at all, and you're able to reveal some information. So it works with lists, and so spectator goes to a web page, either a list of movies, which looks like IMDb. They might think they're on IMDb.com, or a list of actors or music or songs or names or whatever it might be. And the input, the action that they do is simply scroll through the list. So you might ask them to think of a country. You say, in fact, go to this website, make sure it's on this site. Just get the image of the flag in your head. So have a scroll through. Can you see that country? Can you see that flag? Yes, great. So scroll away from it, lock your phone, put it away, and that's it. So it's like this kind of non-invasive input that then the magician gets a peek from. So it's more of a tool. It's hard to kind of put a specific effect on it, but you can get some information without the spectator typing anything in.
That's amazing. That's such a great idea. And
Oh,
again,
thanks.
it's that thing of all of your apps work with each other. I mean, that's one thing. I don't know if you've tried to do that on purpose. I imagine you have. That every single app talks to each other, and you know, if you have every single all eight, I think, of your apps, you know, they're all going to sync up and work together, which is great.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's not complete in terms of absolutely like everything going to talk to everything, but there are certainly some things that if I see an app that does something really, really well, rather than reinvent the wheel and bring that over and copy it across, I'd be like, well, it makes sense that if you have this and have this, then you can use this to input on this and stuff. But I also put a lot of focus on in their own right. If you only wanted earworm, for example, then that's all you need, or Wikitest, for example. But there certainly are some benefits to having both.
I suppose we need to talk about the other two apps that we haven't talked about briefly, just so that we've covered all of our bases. What's in
Sure.
Nerd?
So inertia is one of these things that has been spun out of Amalgam. So it's still an Amalgam as well, but it is a force. It's a forcing app on any website. So you can have your spectator go to any website and you can force anything on that page. And again, this is one of these things that I've had for many, many years, like just like Diverter and a bunch of other stuff. I've just kind of had it. Diverter's been out, but inertia, I've just had it in the works and finally, managed to find its form. So you can have the spectator go to a particular website, and anything on the page you force, and it was that was also kind of born out of a frustration, just like Zeno was. Whereas in this case, it's I never really enjoyed the apps where you'd have this, you'd load up something on your phone, and you'd bring your phone like this and say scroll around, and whenever you want, touch something. And to me, that just kind of felt a little bit like maybe what it is, and I thought we could do better. And so a few years ago, I came up with a way of forcing something that just kind of felt incredibly fair, where the spectator scrolls and wherever it lands, as it decelerates, it will land on something, and it just kind of matches the inertia of your scroll to force a particular thing to the spectator, and it just feels very natural. So instead of being this, it's now like this, and that's inertia.
Very clever. And then we have one last one to talk about, which is WebFX.
WebFX is a old app of mine, but I'm still keeping it live and updated. So it's a playing card prediction or a playing card prediction or revelation that you can use on your own website. So I would say go to my website and tell you what, before you scroll down, or even maybe go to my website and there's a photo of me. Name any playing card, and you'd name any playing card, and I go, sure enough. If you zoom in, you might not have realized this, but if you zoom in just over here, there's one playing card here, and you can kind of see it in the background there. This person's holding it, and they zoom in, they realize that it's the five of clubs or whatever it is. So it's an incredibly simple card trick, but just it was a nice way in. I think I released it very like 2013, and I've kept it updated over the years. But yeah, a card trick on your website that I think just kind of feels incredibly fair.
That's great. I mean, so much wonderful material on there. I mean, so many different things. And this review show special, I'm going to go back now and review Streets. But with your permission, I might actually do another one of these in a few weeks and just look at all your other apps, because there's so many wonderful apps that you do. And I think it'd be really nice to kind of talk about all of them.
Oh yeah, sure,
That'd be wonderful. But right
sure,
now,
sure.
it's Streets that we're talking about. That's the hot topic. That's what everybody is talking about. Now, this is available on the App Store. You can either type in Streets Pro, or they can go to your website, and there is a link that takes you through to the correct page on the App Store. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, yeah,
Perfect.
yeah.
And I'll be putting a URL at the bottom of the screen, and I'll put a link in the description so that people can go and get it. Do you have like a Facebook group or anything that people can talk about? Yeah. So
Yeah,
if they
so
like support.
for Streets, for also, but for Wikitest and EOM and a bunch of stuff, if you go into the app, and linked to the bottom of the instructions normally is where you find a link to a Facebook group, and everyone who's got it kind of discussing ideas. And if there's ever something I'm working on, I normally kind of put it there, or if I want to gauge ideas or gauge thoughts on something, it's quite a vibrant place where, you know, we're all discussing new features and things coming out, and maybe routining ideas and tips, and, you know, good ways of performing it and bad ways of performing it. So Facebook groups is if you're on Facebook and you've got the app, definitely worth joining for sure.
Perfect. Absolutely fantastic. Mark, thanks very much for taking the time to talk to us about Streets and everything else. It's been absolutely brilliant. Congratulations on the success of the app. Everybody is raving about it. I'm going to go back into the studio now and give it a full review. But one more time, thank you so much for coming on the channel.
Oh, thanks, Craig. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So there you go, guys. That was the interview with Marc Kerstein. And first of all, thank you, Mark, for finding time to come on the channel and chat to me about Streets Pro. Got to say, big fan of his work. And, you know, it's fantastic that he found the time to actually come on the channel and speak to me about it. That's absolutely awesome. So now let's do a review of the product, shall we? Let's do a review of the project. Now, first of all, I do need to say this is an iPhone only app. A lot of the stuff that Mark does is iPhone only. If you are an Android user, look elsewhere. I know it can be very frustrating, and I know a lot of Android users do get frustrated that apps aren't available on their phone. That's just the way it is. A lot of Mark's apps are only available on iPhone. This is one of those apps that's only available for an iPhone. So, as we said in the interview, Mark bought the rights to John Archer's Streets and turned it into an app. And it was originally part of a bundle that Mark bought out, but he's now bought it out as his own standalone app. And I've got to tell you right now, I think this is absolutely phenomenal. It's very, very, very clever. Like, we're talking super clever. And you don't need to have anything on you. If you have a phone, you are good to go. Obviously, you need a spectator with a phone as well, but as long as that spectator's got a phone, and as long as you've got a phone, you're good to go. And you will absolutely blow people away. You can do like a 10-minute mind-reading demonstration with this. That literally, I can't stress this enough. You know, for people that are obsessed like I am about everyday carrying, like, oh, what am I going to carry around with me? This is perfect, because you can do something using your phone and the spectator's phone. You don't need to have anything on you. And I've talked about this on the channel before. One of my biggest pet hates is those magicians that get stopped, and people go, oh, you're a magician, can you do me a trick? Well, I haven't got anything on me. Well, in this case, you've got something that you can have on you the whole time. But this isn't just like something that you do if you're caught out and about and you've got nothing on you. Oh, right, I've got nothing on me, but don't worry, I've got this app. This is something that will work close up. This will work in a virtual show. This will work to an audience on stage, to hundreds of people. This is really strong. In fact, you know, we talked about how this was based on John Archer's routine. I remember when John first brought this out, and everybody was raving about it. Now, obviously, these days, people don't carry an A to Z around with them, but what people do is they have Google Maps on their phone. Everybody has Google Maps on their phone. So, this is perfect. Now, I'm going to do a quick performance to Sarah behind the camera. Look out for a Magic Live on this, because I talked about this on the channel before. One thing that I want to do now the world is opening up is I want to do more Magic Lives and more content for this channel actually out on the streets to real people, so you can see how this stuff plays to real people. Not that Sarah's not a real person, she's not a fake wife, she's a real wife, but you know the point I'm trying to make. So I'm actually going to get some live performance footage of this as well down the line, but I'm going to perform it right now to Sarah behind the camera. So let me do a performance for you so you can kind of see the structure of the routine. I'll break down what the app does and then I'll give it a review. Okay, so I've got Sarah behind the camera. You have not seen this trick before, have you, Sarah? I did, however, ask you to get your phone out. Have you got your phone?
Yes.
Very good. Grab it in front of you because I have made a prediction. And I'm going to send you that prediction. I'm going to text it over to you. And it is, well, you'll see it's actually a Google Maps pin.
Google, is that
A
like
Google, yeah. It's the new version of Google Maps. It's a Google Maps pin of somewhere. Now, if I just send that over to you, can you just confirm that you've got that for me, please?
Yes.
You have, fantastic. And if you open it up, if you click on the link, I just want to have a quick look at the map. You can see it's somewhere in the Birmingham area, but that's it.
I can't see it. It just looks like it's in the UK.
Okay, cool. So hold it here. Hold the phone to your chest like this.
Yeah.
Very good. Close to your heart.
Right.
Wonderful. Now, I've chosen to put that pin somewhere in the Birmingham area. And the reason I've chosen to do that is because you're from Birmingham. Well, you're not from Birmingham, you're from Doncaster, but you live in the Birmingham area and you've worked in the Birmingham area for many years. So you know Birmingham inside out, back to front, upside down and left to right. Right. So when I snap my fingers like this, Sarah, and only when I snap my fingers, what I would like you to do is I would like you to pick somewhere in Birmingham. It can be somewhere that you've been to, somewhere you've never been to. It can be, like a point of interest or a location, or it doesn't really matter, but somewhere in Birmingham. If you can do that right now.
Yeah.
What is it?
Cannon Hill Park.
Cannon Hill Park. And there's no way I could know that, is there? Like, that was a completely free choice. I didn't make you pick Cannon Hill Park. That was a completely free choice.
Yeah.
It's not like we set this up beforehand or anything like that. It's not like you're a stooge or in on this.
No.
And I've before you even thought about Cannon Hill Park, before you even knew what you were going to be thinking of, I sent you that pin. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Yes. Very good.
Although I can't tell where it is.
Well, now what I want you to do is have a look at your phone. And you know you can do this thing and you can zoom in.
Yeah.
I want you to zoom in. And when you zoom in, I want you to tell everyone where that pin was dropped.
Zooming in. Hang on, then it's taking a while.
This is exciting. Where was it dropped?
Oh, what? Cannon Hill Park.
Right in the centre of Cannon Hill Park, right?
Yeah.
Now, that's not bad. That's pretty good. That proves that I know what you're thinking. But then again, we have been married for many, many years. So maybe I knew ahead of time, if I gave you a choice to think of somewhere in Birmingham, you'd think of Cannon Hill Park, because I know you've been there many times. So we're going to see if we can go one step further.
Right.
What I want you to do is I want you to take your phone. And what I want you to do is I want you to type at the top somewhere in Birmingham. It doesn't even have to be somewhere in Birmingham. It can be somewhere anywhere in the world. But I want you to type at the top. You know, in the search bar when you search Google for something, search for somewhere. It could be, like, again, it could be a monument. It could be a it could be a point of interest. Just search. Don't actually hit search, but just type something up there.
Right. Okay.
Have you got it?
Yeah.
Actually, you know what? Delete that. We're going to go one step further. Forget that. We're going to go one step further. Yeah, delete it. We're going to go one step further.
Right,
Instead, what I want you to do, I want you to zoom around the map. You can zoom out. You can zoom into a different country. Pretend you have the power to go anywhere you want to. You know, like on Google Maps, you can zoom in, zoom out, zoom up, zoom down. Zoom somewhere. Zoom to anywhere.
Anywhere at all.
Anywhere at all.
Right, okay.
Anywhere at all.
Yeah.
And when you're there, what I want you to do is I want you to zoom in.
Yeah.
And I want you to, what I want you to do, this is interesting. I want you to zoom in.
Yeah.
And have a look at a street name.
Okay.
Have a look at a street name.
Yeah.
I mean, there's lots of different streets, but pick one of those street names.
Okay.
Have you done that?
Yes.
Okay, very interesting. Okay, look at that street name. What I want you to do is I want you to get that street name in your head. And not just the name, but also the, so, for example, if our office would be Mill Park, think of the whole thing. If we can do that, that'd be great. Yeah? Have you done that?
Yeah.
Imagine it in your head, right there in front of you.
Okay.
Okay. There's a C, isn't there? There's a C. Is that right? There's a C. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the name of the street, there's a C. I see it very, very clearly. There's a D as well, isn't there? Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, this is actually, I said you could zoom in and around and go anywhere. But you actually stayed in Birmingham, didn't you?
Maybe.
Yes, you did. Is this okay? I'm gonna see if this is right or not. Is this Icknield Street? Is that right? Is that
I
Icknield
think that's
Street?
how you say it.
Icknield
Yeah,
Street or something like that? Is that right?
Yes, it is.
And you could have thought of anywhere, couldn't you?
Yeah.
But I tell you what, we're going to do one final thing, because earlier on, I mean, that's incredible, the fact that I was able to know that. But earlier on, I asked you to think of somewhere, and I asked you to put it in, and then I told you to delete it. But you're obviously thinking of somewhere else. Before you thought of Icknield Street, you were thinking of somewhere else.
Yes.
Let's go back to that. Don't worry about typing it again. Let's go back to that. This is interesting. This is interesting. This is a point of interest. This is a very famous point of interest. This is somewhere that everybody would recognise. When you typed something in earlier on, did you type in? You couldn't have. Did you type in the Eiffel Tower in Paris?
Maybe.
Come on, tell me. Did you?
I did, yeah.
Boom, there you go. That's Streets by Marc Kerstein. Okay, so that is Streets Pro. That's what it does. That is a typical performance. Now, what you have here, the first thing that you have to do in with this particular trick is you have to pair your phone to the spectator's phone. And the initial prediction routine that you do, where you send somebody a link to a pin, that is the very, very genius way that you're using to pair the phone. It's a very natural way to do it. You just send somebody that link. Hey, I've got a prediction here. I want to send you the link. Can you have a look at this for me? You click on it. It's going to open up Google Maps. You can see there's a pin there. Wicked. We're going to come back to that in a minute. Now, that method right there then pairs the phones, if that kind of makes sense. But it's a very logical way to do that. And they've got various different ways that pin can be sent across. So you can do, just as I did with Sarah, and send it via text message. Because what happens is, within the app, you create this link which runs for half an hour. So when you want to do this, you create this particular link, and the app creates it for you automatically, and then you just send it over to them, and then you can create a new one every time you perform it, which is absolutely fine. But there's lots of different ways of actually sending this across. So one way that you can do it, which I thought was very clever, is the thing will create a QR code for you. So what you can do if you're doing a virtual show is you can have a QR code created, and the person that you're performing it for virtually, you can just hold your phone screen up to them and they can scan the QR code, which is another way of doing it, which I thought was very, very clever. So, and then what happens is they name a place. It can be any place, and they zoom in on this pin, and when they do, the pin is pinned to the place they named. In this case, Sarah named Cannon Hill Park, and when she zoomed in, it was on Cannon Hill Park. Now, there's lots of different ways to do that, and I'm not going to go into all the different ways, but there's the standard method, there's voice recognition, there's using an accomplice. There's lots of ways of doing that, all of which are very practical. All of which are very, very practical. I should say that right now. They are all super practical. When I was watching the instructional video, because by the way, on the app, there's a performance video, there's an instructional video, and then there's a whole bunch of written content as well. The instructions are great. And I think that's one of the problems that I have with apps sometimes. They don't have great instructions. In fact, the instructions are kind of dire, right? The instructions here are really, really good. They really are. And the live performance, the routine is being performed several times. Ollie Mealing is one of the spectators performing this many times. You can see exactly how this plays, which is really good. So that's the first part of the routine. The first part where you're predicting where they're going to be thinking of with a pin. That's the method that's just used to pair the phone, right? But let's not overlook that for a minute. Let's not overlook how absolutely awesome that is as a trick. You know, think about it for a second. The guy or the girl is thinking of somewhere, and you've sent them a pin. You've given them the prediction. They've opened it up on their phone. They've opened that prediction before they've even said anywhere, and they zoom in, and you've predicted exactly where they would think of. That is killer. And I think it's very important that we realize that. The second part, you have so many different options. You have so many different options. So the second part is you get them to think of somewhere. And you can do this multiple times. And this is where, I mean, this is more of a mentalism act. This is more of a tool than it is a particular trick, because there's so many different ways you can go in this next phase. So you can have them search for something in the search bar. And because the phones are paired, you'll know exactly what they're searching for. And what the app does is it keeps track of everything they search for. So if they search for 7 or 8 different things, it'll keep track of everything. And you have on your phone, you have everything that you need to know. You have like everything in front of you. But the nice thing about this is the app is built so that when you're holding your phone, they can't see anything. There's a couple of different options. The first option is, I don't want to give too much away here, but the first option is your phone just looks like it's black. It looks like it's off. So anybody who's looking, or you can be gesturing with your phone, it looks like your phone's off. But you come back here like this, and you can immediately see everything that you need to see. The other option is, which is very clever, you can make your phone screen look like you're in Google Maps yourself. So you can have your phone screen, and this is the way that Mark does it on the performance. He goes, okay, you're thinking of somewhere. Let me grab my Google Maps and I'll see if I can work out where you're thinking of. And anyone who's looking at this phone as you're doing this, it looks like you're looking at Google Maps yourself. But in reality, you've got this full screen in front of you that you can access and hide at any point you want to, that gives you all the information. You can have the information of what they've put in the search bar. You can have, it comes up. So if they zoom in, for example, to a particular area, it tells you all the points of interest in that area. It tells you everything. If there's a cafe, if there's a bar, if there's a restaurant, if there's multiple bars or restaurants, it tells you everything. You can see a map of exactly where they're looking at that particular moment in time. It's really clever. And then there's this anagram thing. So if you tell them to think of a road name, what Streets Pro will do is it will look at all the different road names around you, around where they're zoomed in, and what it'll do is it'll give you a letter, and you say, is that letter in think of the road name, is the letter there? And if it is, you just swipe to the right. If it's not, you swipe to the left, and that's telling the anagram whether the letter's there or not. And normally with one swipe or 2 swipes, it'll then work out exactly what the road is they're thinking of, which is just mind-blowing to me. I mean, it's almost like cheating. It's almost like too clever. And it's great. And you've got this perfect reason to hold on to your phone, because you're like, well, you're thinking somewhere in Google Maps. Let me see if I can, I don't know, because you could be anywhere in the world. I have no idea. Is there an A in the letter? No, there is. Well, you're thinking of this. But then, you can go back, and anything they search for in the search bar, you can tell them that as well. Super clever, absolutely super clever. Now, at the end of the routine, when you want to finish, what you do is you just have to double tap your home screen, and it unpairs the phone. But the other thing it does is it sends a notification to their phone telling them to open up the Google Maps. And it's the thing that comes up on their phone is phrased in such a way that they have really no choice but to go to Google Maps. And if they don't press anything, it'll open up Google Maps anyway, the app. And then when that happens, they're in the app, which is great. But when they go in the app, they're in exactly the same place as where they searched when they weren't in the app, and it closes everything down from their browser. So there's no history, there's nothing to find, which again is ridiculously clever. I mean, stupidly clever, right? So at the end, when you finish the whole presentation, donk, donk, you're done. Double tap, that's it. There's nothing for them to find, and they're in Google Maps, and they're right where they're searched for, and they'll just be completely blown away. And the cool thing is, then, when you go to the next table, You just send another link, you activate another link, send another link across, and you're ready to go again. I mean, this is super clever stuff. If you are a mind reader, if you're a mentalist, if you're somebody who does mentalism or mind reading or mental magic, you absolutely, completely, and totally need this, because this is as close to real mind reading as you're going to get. And the cool thing is, because everybody uses Google Maps these days, like everybody, it doesn't matter if you're an iPhone user or an Android user, everybody uses Google Maps, right? So if you use Google Maps, like it just all makes sense. And so there was a trick that came out recently called Instaprime, and I really like Instaprime. And one of the things that people say they didn't like about Instaprime is you have to borrow their phone and you have to go onto Amazon through the browser, right? So you have to go onto Amazon through the browser, not in the Amazon app, and it doesn't make sense that you would use the browser and not the Amazon app. Well, technically with Streets Pro, you're going in through the browser as well, but it does make sense. And the reason it makes sense is because you're sending people this pin. That's the first thing that you're doing at the very beginning. Because the thing with Instaprime, if that's an issue for you, and I don't think it's an issue, I know where people are coming from, I don't think it's an issue. If that's an issue for you, there's no way to kind of get around that with Instaprime really. But with this, you're sending them this link, this prediction, which opens it up automatically in their browser, and then they zoom in and it's there. And then at the end, it opens it up into Google Maps and their app, and they'll probably remember that they were in the app from the very beginning anyway, knowing how spectators' minds work. So it's totally not an issue. I just want to bring that to your attention. The other thing that I should point out, I've given a kind of an overview of the basic routine, but you can structure this in as many different ways as you want to. The other thing is, this app plays well with a lot of other different add-ons, and it connects with things over Bluetooth and so on and so forth. It works really well with the Earworm app. So if you have the Earworm app, it works really well with the Earworm app, and there's a whole section about how you can link Streets Pro with Earworm to utilize the input method of Streets Pro within utilize the input method of the Earworm app within Streets Pro. There's a lot you can do there. So any Earworm users, this is great, because like a lot of Mark's apps, they all play well with each other. But like I say, if you're a mentalist, if you do mental magic, if you're a mind reader, this should be an absolute must get. I could see you doing this on stage to thousands of people and just blowing them away. I really can. I could see you doing this to thousands of people and blowing them away. But I could also see this working really well for a close-up magician in a close-up gig. If you're a tech magician, or you like doing technology-based magic. I do a lot of work at the moment for social media companies, and they love me doing stuff with apps. They really do. This just makes sense, because I can get somebody to open up their phone, I can use their phone, blah, 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 blah. It's absolutely great. But as a magician, you can play this as a magic trick as well. You don't have to play this up as mind reading. Obviously, you are doing mind reading, but this works really well for a magician as well. It works really well for everybody, because even like kids and teenagers, let's say you're a restaurant magician doing a family restaurant, kids these days have phones. Rylan knows how to use Google Maps, and he's 8. Right, so the point is, it will work for absolutely everybody. And again, it's a killer. You can do it very, very quickly, or you can take your time over it and build it up to a longer act, and it's just on your phone. So for those people that want to take as many tricks around with them, but they're struggling for pocket space, this is on your phone. It's ready to go. Anytime, anywhere that you want to do this trick, you go into it and you're ready to go. It's killer. Absolutely killer. And you know what? I haven't done this in a gigging situation yet, but I'm going to probably do the QR thing, because I don't want to be sending somebody. Can I have your mobile phone number? I just want to text you over a link to a Google pin. I much prefer the idea of saying, if you've got your phone, can you put the camera icon on? Brilliant. I've got this QR code. Can you just scan this for me? You can. Brilliant. It should have opened up the maps. Yeah, has it? Great. Hold that to your chest. Brilliant. We're going to get into this. I think that's very quick, very fuss-free. That's probably my favourite input method out of everything that Mark's put together with this. Look, bottom line, this gets 100%. I'm waxing lyrical about this because I absolutely love it and I highly recommend it, and I think that everybody should get one of these. There's some apps, there's some tech-based stuff that isn't very good. This is not one of them. Again, Mark Kerstein's name attached to any product is a guarantee that this is commercial, well thought out, and worth every penny. It's 100%. I think it's absolutely brilliant. And if you see me at a convention or you see me at a lecture, ask me to do this, because I think this is going to be one of my go-to routines moving forward. So there you go. That's it. That is another review show special in the bag. What I want to do is now know what you think. Do you have Streets Pro? Do you agree? Have you got any of other Mark's apps? What do you think of them? Are you planning on getting this? Has my review changed your mind one way or another? Please let me know in the comments down below. And once again, if you want to see more videos like this, please do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment down below. I'm going to be back again on Monday with a 5x5 at 9 o'clock. At 2 o'clock, I'm going to be here with the shorts, and at 6 o'clock, I'm going to be here with a Magic Live. Once again, thank you very much for tuning in and watching. I'll see you again. My name's Craig from Magic